What up, folks? I'm back to Dude Who Has the Outrageous Point of Views. I'm back with this video that's gonna fall in the playlist, in the YouTube playlist, exposing the BOP. This is gonna be one of those videos where I take you through what staff at different levels of the BOP has done, and I'm showing you their dirt. I'm airing their dirty laundry out on YouTube for you to see, right? Because a lot of people like to believe that it can't be that bad, or staff at staff don't do that stuff because they're professionals and so on and so forth, right? Well, if all the beatings and the stomping on necks and kneeling on necks and all of that stuff, folks left bloodied and battered and stuff, don't sway you, right? If you think that that's the only way they misbehave, you are wrong, right? They misbehave when it comes to folks' due process rights, dealing with policy, giving folks the things that they need, neglecting folks in the system, right? So there are many different ways that staff violates, and I'm going to walk you through one of them. Okay, so this video, you should know, is kind of like a second or part two or continuation of a previous video that I did, which talked about a guy named Stephen Negron who was wrongfully charged with escape, and then given a sham or pretend DHO hearing. They never give him a DHO report, and then he had to complain to the regional office about that situation, right? Well, this is about what happened to that complaint. Right? What do you think happened? Does anybody want to guess what happened? Because that was a serious situation, right? Where Negron again was given a false charge of escape, given a false due process hearing, and then on top of that, well, of course, he lost good conduct time, so he's going home, being released. I think it's about somewhere between 35 to 45 days later because of that false charge, right? Just that one. And so what you have happening here is, in his filing to the region, is massive exposure of fundamental flaws in the BOP's disciplinary process, which, if Negron is correct and if our filing is correct, not just Negron, but many folks at these facilities are suffering in bad faith proper due process, and getting proper due process. They're suffering, they're not getting proper due process, and they're suffering punishments based on a flawed system and a pretense system. And I think I did a great job of exposing that in the first video. Well, what you're gonna see in this video, right? I'm going to walk you through, just cover that just a little bit, but I'm going to walk you through what happens many times when you do what I've done in that first video, and what's done in Negron's remedy, where we expose staff and a faulty system. Then what happens is you get staff on the higher levels trying to cover up the dirt, to hide the mess that their underlings are taking part in at the lower levels, right? In this case, at the halfway houses and the RRC management, all right? It's horrific, and Yeah, in this case, they decided. Yeah, let me not tell you what it is. Let me show you. Let me show you what's going on. All right. So what's going on here? Denial of Negron's due process. So what you see in front of you here is a BP9 that BP9 with a BP8 attached, right? That one of our most prolific and current remedy writers, I believe is CC, has done. Yep, there we go, Cecilia, right? Stephen Negron, assisted by Cecilia at Columbia University. Listen, amazing stuff. All right. So Cecilia did this remedy, and what you're gonna see is that in this remedy, which was filed at the RRC, local RRC, um, it's a civil rights complaint. You got to do the informal resolution. We put stuff on here, so I'm not going to educate you on how to do remedies today. This is not what this is about, right? I'm not educating you how to do remedies. I'm just showing you that we did the remedy properly, right? The remedy exists. So you got the 9 and the 8 attached, and you got the continuation pages, right? You got the continuation pages. This is the third one, 3 continuation pages, and then it goes into exhibits, right? So, right. So we did some great work here, right? But what I'm walking you through here, and let's do it from this page here where everything is legible, right? What I'm walking you through here is what's happening at the Federal Bureau of Prisons regional office, right? So again, so CC on Negron's behalf here, she's preparing this, and CC is charging, bringing a civil rights complaint against the Bronx halfway house, Bronx RRC, right? Its director, its residential reentry manager, Patrick McFarland. This guy, he has an office in MDC Brooklyn, I believe, and at the regional facility in Pennsylvania. The New York RRM Administrative Remedy Coordinator, that's whoever is dealing with the administrative remedies at the Northeast Regional Office, right? Administrative Remedy Coordinator at the Northeast Regional Office. Now, that could be a number. I'm sure that office is big, and that there's a couple of staff in there that are responsible for handling complaints and or requests when they come in through administrative remedies. One of them is the guilty party and or couple. I don't know if they all get together and make decisions when when it's time to screw somebody over, but that was done this time, right? So CC is charging all of them with a civil rights violation of Negron's due process rights by preventing his access to properly use the administrative remedy program. The regional office wrongfully rejected Mr. Negron's previous civil rights BP10 complaint, misconstruing it as a time-barred DHO appeal, and thus uh, obscured his right to fair administrative remedy process. Right? What is CC talking about here? Well, right, and this is the opening paragraph of every remedy, kind of like gives you an overview of what's going on, right? So basically what happened in that last video where I walked you through the remedy that we did for Negron, and we sent it off to the region complaining about the sham charge, sham escape charge, and the sham DHO hearing that they provided him, and the fact that they didn't even provide him with a legitimate DHO report, something that he could use to appeal, right? And we sent that to the region, right? Or I should say Negron sent it to the region, because we mailed it to him and he signed it off and he sent it to the region. This is what happened, right? And it's in the facts here. CC covered it in the facts. He sent that off to the region, and the regional department never sent Negron a receipt, which they're supposed to do in accordance with policy, saying that they got it, or they never sent a rejection notice to him as they're supposed to, saying he got it, and they had not responded to him also, to his complaint at all, right? And so after a period of time passed, and Negron was concerned that he hadn't seen a receipt, he hadn't seen anything, no response or nothing at all, he decided to call the regional department and ask them for an update on his filing. Hold on, behold, when he calls the department, and it says who he talked to specifically at the office in this remedy. If you could read it, you take a look. But the staff member then proceeds to tell Mr. Negron that they rejected his civil rights complaint about the sham process as if it was a DHO appeal. So in other words, they construed or they interpreted his complaint about a sham process and the fact that he was not getting a proper due process. He was not getting a fair DHO hearing, and he didn't even get a report so that he could appeal. If he doesn't get a DHO a report, he can't appeal. Right? He needs a DHO report in order to appeal. He didn't send a DHO report to the regional office, therefore he could not appeal. Therefore, his 10, which clearly said civil rights complaint, and we have it here as attached as exhibit, it clearly says I'm submitting here. This is it, right? I am submitting this BP10 civil rights complaint to the regional office without a BP9 and or BP8 response because the Bronx halfway house director refused to accept my BP9 and BP8 attached here to an incorporated hearing, and and directed me to file at the regional office. So he did that. He sent this with everything else attached to the regional office. And they said, oh, this is a appeal, a DHO appeal. And it's late. So you can't file this. So they rejected it as an appeal, as a lately filed appeal, or as we like to say, the proper term would be a time barred appeal, meaning that because he filed his appeal outside the policy timeline for doing so, they were allowed to reject it, and that would be legitimate. Well, guess what? He was not outside the time for appeal, because he never got a DHO report in the first place. If he doesn't get the time for him to appeal starts from the time he is given a sufficient and proper DHO report. He never got one. So what is the region talking about? What is that staff member talking about? That his stuff was rejected because it was time barred, because it was an appeal. What? But these folks are outrageous at every level a lot of times, right? It's not, they like to say we got a couple bad apples. I don't know, man. I'm willing to bet that half the barrel is bad. It's not just a couple, because this is outrageous behavior. So he didn't get a DHO report. It can't be a DHO appeal. He didn't send a DHO appeal. It says clearly that it's a civil rights complaint against staff for not providing these things. And yet a staff member at the regional office is telling Mr. Negron that his DHO appeal was rejected because it was untimely. He filed it too late. What in the world, folks? What in the world, right? So this is what CC is telling that story here. We call her CC for short. Cecilia, we call her CC for short, right? So Cecilia is telling that story, what happened to Mr. Negron here, right? And of course she points out the rules and the violations that they covered, and then she makes the argument here, right? And basically Cecilia's argument is kind of like what I just hinted to, right? That, you know, regional office, you guys need to be part of a complaint also, right? And so what was done is a broader civil rights complaint was filed, including the regional office, and so on and so forth. And I'm missing some. I'm not giving you some facts, right? So here's some of the facts. In the facts here, sorry, the staff member told Mr. Negron that they sent the rejection of his appeal back to the RRM, back to McFarlane, the guy who is responsible for the Bronx and Brooklyn halfway house. They sent it back to him, and it's his responsibility to make sure that the halfway house gives it to Mr. Negron. Mr. Negron never seen that paperwork. He never got a rejection. He never got a receipt of filing. He never got a response. He has no clue what the regional person is telling him. McFarlane and that director at the halfway house, someone or the two of them, if the regional office staff member is telling the truth, made that shit disappear. They made his filing disappear. Somebody made his filing disappear. Now, who do you believe? Do you believe the staff members at the regional office who wrongfully rejected his civil rights complaint about his due process being violated as a DHO appeal? Do you believe those crooks, all right, who just violated that man's due process rights, right? Or do you believe McFarlane and the director at at the local level, the Bronx and or New York level, who carried out the false charge and false DHO system, and has a false DHO system running in the first place, right? Do you believe them, right? All of them, nobody's doing the right thing here. So who do you believe? Regional staff does have a habit of sending stuff to McFarlane and or the directors. They send stuff to them through the bureau's mail, in-house mail, and it's supposed to be given to Mr. Negron at the halfway house. But somebody made that stuff disappear. It disappeared. And Mr. Negron wouldn't have found anything out. Had he not called, he will never know. They would have kept quiet and let that ride just like that. Next thing you know, he's doing extra 45. He's into his extra 45 days, and nobody is addressing his situation. But because he's communicating with us and we are staying on top of, hey, Mr. Negron, now it's time for you to check. You need to call up the regional. That's what I told him. You need to call up that regional office and ask them for an update on your filing. And that's when they told him, oh no, man, we rejected that shit a long time ago. And we sent it back, right? It was a DHO appeal. What? I didn't file a DHO appeal. I filed a complaint. I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Grown. We have it listed here as we rejected a DHO appeal because it was untimely. He never got it back. This, folks, is the corruption at all levels. At all levels, even the regional level, there is corruption. And CC's arguing here that, Mr. Negron never filed a DHO appeal. He could not have filed one because he never even had a DHO report. He filed a civil rights complaint against staff, and the regional office wrongfully rejected it. So now you have the regional office, administrative remedy coordinator's office, McFarlane at MDC Brooklyn, and the director and staff at the Bronx halfway house, all in a conspiracy to deny Mr. Negron his due process rights, because they made his due process complaint against them and their fraud system disappear. And that's what Cece is explaining here. This is a complaint against all of them, and she has request here and it's signed off, right? And we sent this off to Negron, and he sent it to Mr. McFarlane, who'd probably make this disappear too. He'd probably make it disappear too, right? Because they're trying to protect their skin. And I promise you, these guys have been doing this kind of dirt in the Bureau of Prisons for a long time, and they've been getting away with it for a long time. But you got superstars like CC at the Remedy Project exposing their work with some good remedies like this, and of course I'm going to add some icing on top. I'm going to bring it to you folks so that you could see what's going on, right? You could see what's going on. And she did great work. She added his previous filing that was supposed to be a complaint, civil rights complaint, to show that he never submitted a DHO appeal. He couldn't have, right? It was not a DHO appeal, right? And so you see the exhibits. And so this is great work, folks. I hope this education and knowledge was definitely an eye-opener for you, folks, that you could see that what is really going on, why the Remedy Project is needed, why we are doing what we're doing, why people like me who have the knowledge and skill to identify the corruption and then take the time to explain that to the students so that they could then take the time to produce great work like Sissy did to fight for Mr. Negron so that she could get him back his good conduct time, right? So he could go home on time as he's supposed to and not be screwed over by staff because they just feel like it. So listen, this is probably for another video, but these folks do this stuff a lot sometimes just because they are accustomed to it. A lot of times they might not even have an issue with the person, or it's just because they're accustomed. They're so accustomed to screwing folks over that they just do it. That could be this case here, or they could have they could have some bad blood with him. I don't know what it is, but they did him dirty. Anyway, folks, it's exposed right here on the Criminal Justice Realm YouTube channel, Remedy Project. We got you. We got you. We out here exposing. We working. All right. See you guys.